What's going on, y'all? It's J Smo Reviews here, back at it again with another video, man. Bringing you guys my URL NOME 15 recap. It was NOME Day yesterday, and I was gonna record last night. For what already wasn't a very great NOME, I'll tell you that right now. Just battle quality wise, it wasn't up there. The stream was fine for Watch Battle Live, a tad bit glitchy, but never like really out of bounds or like stream crashing or anything like that. There just wasn't a lot of great back and forth. So this is going to be a quicker recap because it was honestly mostly a lopsided night of battles. And then after 5 battles, you get to your main event with Geechee Gotti versus T-Rex, and the real takeaway of the night, the only thing that mattered and kind of sucked the energy out of anything battle rap related, was definitely the condition of T-Rex mid-battle with Geechee Gotti, collapsing, having a seizure on stage in the first round. Never seen anything quite like that in all my time watching battle rap, where there's like just a medical emergency in the middle of the performance like that. Really, all I care about post-NOME was T-Rex's well-being. I heard that he was stable in the ambulance on the way to the hospital, and hopefully he's doing better now. So just one of those things that takes, whether it was going to be a good night or a slanderous night after the event, it takes all the energy out seeing one of our legends in that condition, and was just completely stunning. So all prayers to T-Rex, all health is wealth, and hoping him a speedy recovery and that it's nothing too serious, repeat issue, anything like that. So we'll stick to the 5 battles that did go down on the card. Like I said, it was lopsided. This is going to be one of the quicker event recaps that I've had, but I'll give you my opinions on the winners, what I thought were the better performances / battles of the night, and then my overall ranking for the event. And to open the night, as expected, Chess versus Eunice got that beginning of the night energy, and there was obviously a lot of pressure with this battle. I felt like it was one of the better promoted battles of the card, so a funny situation where the opener kind of acted as one of the most key battles of the night overall, and they say the opener is supposed to set the tone, and it absolutely did that. It set the tone for a night of lopsided results like I spoke on earlier, and it starts in the first round. Chess has a decent first round. The material is good, but the first is got all the issues that every chess first round has in these bigger stages, and it's a pace thing. Chess did not straight up throw up. He did not straight up choke, but he was getting closer and closer to it, right? It seemed like he was having his usual breathing, kind of burping issues, and the pace of the round was just fucked up. I mean, there's good material in there. There's no question about it. But it's hard to get a haymaker or a stronger punch and then pause and breathe. And then get a punch that's not all that, then a good one, then pause and breathe. And it just made the round so disjointed. There was no flow to it. And then Eunice goes in the first, and he has, in my opinion, what might be the best round of the battle. I know people like both their seconds, but I thought Eunice was getting after Chess. Kind of a long battle from both two. It felt like both of their rounds, for all 3 rounds, were like 5-6 minutes and over, but I thought Eunice did a great job getting the reaction from the crowd. I thought he had the mortician will set the tone. I like that bar from him. A couple performance bars as well. He kind of remixed Chess's bar versus Arsenal about the astrology, no space. Now it's a battler from the spaces giving you no space, so he kind of flipped it on him. I just thought he tapped into all of the nostalgic kind of undertones, the performance undertones. I thought Eunice did everything he had to do to take a really clear 1-0 lead to start the battle. The second is the peak of the battle from a back and forth sense. They both just had a really good second. I think that you could edge Chess the second. I think you can edge Eunice the second. There's no problem with it. Me personally, I didn't view this as like a 1-1 going into the third. I still edged Eunice the second round of the battle, and that left you with the third. So you could have it 1-1. I had it 2-0, and the third is another clear round. It is definitely both their weakest rounds of the battle. Chess did this whole, he had a bar out the gate flipping Eunice's slogan, and then he had his history concept where he said, I did the first 3 2-on-2s, that's history. Tay-Rock, history. DNA, history. So I kind of understood running through his resume, showing that little bit of showing that legacy that he has compared to his opponent. But Chess read off his whole goddamn resume. After a while, he was reading off losses. He read off the Glue Easy battle. Like, he was just reading shit off at some point. So I thought he left the door open in the third, and Eunice had a more message-based third. speaking on his father, speaking on his come up through battle rap and those that doubted him when he was rapping in the spaces. The struggle, what was it that he said? You were struggling back then, I'm struggling right now. I thought by the end, it was a more message-based third, and Eunice made it work. Thought it was slow at first, so it was his weakest round, but overall, still had Eunice winning the third round of the battle. Overall, I had Eunice gentleman's 30, which is not a result I expected. Many of these gentleman's 30s are just 30s I'm going to talk about. I was not expecting, even if I predicted the right winner. So I had Eunice 2-1 edge going in. I got the prediction right, but it was much clearer than I thought. I thought he had one of the best, probably 3 or 4 performances of the night. And really just showed out. Not that I think Chess is necessarily the hardest opponent to get a W on. It's a big reason I predicted against him. Chess does not typically win battles. It just is what it is. But Eunice did what he had to do, showed out on this NOME, and started off the night with one of the more important things to talk about, and that is a W for the new star on the rise. Then we can get right into Jon John versus Fonz, and for me, this was battle of the night going in. I thought it being like the realest and most built-up grudge on the card would lead to it being the best back and forth. But like I said earlier, this was not a night of great back and forth. These were clear results, and this battle was no different. And from the first round of the battle, I thought both of them were on the lighter side, specifically Jon John. I just thought he had started off with a lot of counter writing, like getting to all these angles that Fonz was going to use against him before Fonz used it. But he did so much that he kind of left no room for being on the offensive. I feel like Jon John didn't attack Fonz too much. There wasn't a ton of angles he took in that first, or really much of just wordplay or punching. I thought he was mainly playing on the defensive, so he wasn't landing many points, right? And even by the end of his first, he says, I swear this is my lightest round. I'm going to get better than this. Fonz's first is decent. It's definitely better than Jon John's first, but took him a bit to heat up, used a few different angles, specifically the clone and bad news snitching, right, and using that against Jon John, them being pretty much career-long bullpen talents. I thought he got some good bars out of that. The multiple choice gravesite, fill in the blank, I thought that was crazy, and a couple punches like that. But overall, it was Fonz 1-0, but it was far from like a battle of the night type of start. You get into the second, Jon John definitely kicks it up. By default, his second is his best round of the battle. Not that it was crazy either, but he got a little bit more angling, a little bit more going directly at Fonz, even though he counter-wrote in the second a little bit as well. So he was really trying to get to those angles before Fonz. I still think Fonz had a decent second. He struggled more with pace than he did in the first, like teetering on getting booed. Crowd wasn't really rocking with either of them, it felt like, for a portion. I still had Fonz 2-0, similar to Eunice and Chess. You could edge Jon John that second and have it as a 1-1 battle. And then you get to the third, and this just kind of stamps really the disappointing performance Jon John had. I mean, Fonz has a good showing. His third is his best round as well, but this was as much about Jon John not being good as I felt like it was about Fonz being good. Jon John looked uninspired for portions of this battle. I think he already admitted the loss on Twitter after the battle. So for a grudge, for how I thought it was built up, the competitiveness, what they were saying to each other in the lead up of the battle, Fonz just really easily took this battle. For me, it's another 3-0. Comes down to that second. At the very least, it's Fonz 2-1. I will say the third kind of saved Fonz a bit, giving him a pretty good performance. The whole Jada kiss Y in his third, going after pause, another multiple choice bar. She chose the D, obviously her relationship, Pause's relationship with Calico. I didn't think Fonz would get a lot of success from that angle. I thought it was a little bit too messy, but New York ended up rocking with it. Another battle I predicted right. I had Eunice over Chess. I just didn't expect it that way. I had Fonz over Jon John. I definitely didn't expect it this way. So I didn't think Fonz was one of the standout performers of the night, but there was a few winners on the card, right? It's mostly lopsided winners, so he is one of the winners of the night. I didn't have him as a top 2 or top 3 performer, but he did what he had to do. The matchup looked kind of tough for him going in without the experience Jon John had. A puncher versus an all-around battler. There was things working in Jon John's favor, but he just gave an uninspired 3-round performance, and it led to Fonz getting a pretty easy W in the end. From there, Tay-Rock versus Real Sick. For many people, this was the most exciting battle on the card. This was their battle of the night going in. And you could still argue, I guess either this or Chess and Eunice would be battle of the night. but neither of these are fights, and this is another clear result. But in my opinion, with the performance of the night, I thought that Tay-Rock looked extremely comfortable in New York. No shocker there. He spent a lot of time being the hottest battle rapper in the world while battling in New York on these bigger stages. And I thought Sick was good. This is not one where I think the other side was kind of bad and it takes away. There's not a ton of flaws when I look at what Real Sick did. His first was fire. I thought his second was pretty fire too. His third was a little more condensed. You could see maybe a little bit of confidence losing, a little bit of frustration with the crowd. But I think Sick gave like a 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10 performance. But that was not going to be enough for this. And that's when I said in the prediction that I had Rock 2-1 clear, or it could be a 3-0, some people thought I was crazy because of the form Real Sick's been in. He's been fantastic. But we're talking about a Tay-Rock who is otherworldly explosive on this stage. I think people forget it is basically a home game in New York for Tay-Rock. That is the way that crowd lights up for him. And he just did more. And I think another thing I brought up, the rapping ability, right? 9 out of 10 times when Sick is in a battle, he is the best pure rapper in that battle. He puts flows together better. He's a bit better, if not a lot better, at that aspect. Tay-Rock's last few years has been all about the multisyllabics, the rapping ability, the holding the patterns for 32 bars. So Rock was able to match Sick at his strength. He was able to match that elite rapping ability, but also be better at all the other categories of value. He was a better performer. He was more explosive. His crowd control was better. His haymakers, his top bars of the round were better. So it's one of those battles. Real Sick was good, but he ran into a nightmare matchup. And I had Tay-Rock winning all 3 rounds of this battle clear. Now, it's kind of funny. I have Jon John, right? You could debate he won a round. You could debate Chess won a round. I think Sick was better than a Jon John or a Chess, but he walked into the performance of the night on the opposing side of him as well. I had Tay-Rock in the first, clearly with one of the better rounds of the night versus a good Sick round. So it's not, he really went and took that first from Sick, even though Sick fought well. Felt the same way about the second. By the third, I guess that's the closest round of the battle, but I still preferred what Tay-Rock brought to the table. This could technically still be battle of the night because there's not a lot to take away from Sick as opposed to these other battles where it felt like people lost the battle as much as someone else won it. But this was just a masterclass performance. So Tay-Rock 3-0 in I guess what could be battle of the night, but it's kind of showing you what type of night it is where I have 3 3-0s, 3 battles in. So that leaves you with the final 2 battles that ended up being completed for NOME. And next battle we're going to talk about is Niti versus Jay The Nightwing. Another battle I think people were decently hyped for. And throughout the night, even with all these 3-0s that I'm talking about, only battle that was kind of leaning towards like straight up bad footage, it felt like, was Jon John and Fonz. And even by the end of Fonz's third, that was such a good round. You kind of, at least as a Fonz fan, can appreciate his performance versus Jon John. Like, it felt like the footage wasn't nothing by the end, even if it wasn't the craziest. Niti versus Jay The Nightwing was the most disappointing battle of the night. That's not something I expected from this one, even with them being more writing-based and it's a stage. It's just the confidence I have in them consistently being some of the better battlers or giving some of the better battles of a card for years. I think Niti is synonymous with having battle of the nights or one of the better performances or fights of the night. And Jay The Nightwing has been, as I said in my predictions, bleeding battle of the night all year. He had battle of the night in the 3 major matchups he had with Sheed, with Rock, with Ill Will. I had the Ill Will battle as battle of the year. And even before that, Jay always brings 100. These are 2 guys that always bring their best version. So to see this battle be the worst battle of the night, it really shocked me, and it kind of hit like a low point of the night for me. I mean, they both struggled with getting the crowd. And I know Jay going in the first, his style, some people had worries about how it would translate to the big stage. And he had some moments of good material, but I thought Jay's pace was off. I thought that slowed down, laid-back flow was not connecting with New York too well. So after his first round, I'm like, well, I guess Niti is really just going to come in here and get a pretty easy W. That's what I thought after the first. And then Niti, his performance is a mixture of shorter rounds and the crowd also not connecting with him very much. I thought in the first, the door was wide open to take it clear. I think it's a debatable first round. And Niti's round felt like, 2 minutes on the dot, maybe a little bit shorter. He was up there in swimming trunks. What are you going to do, jump in the Hudson? Like, I didn't know what I don't know what was going on with this battle. The battle simply had no feel. And these guys are two great writers, and if you just looked at the content on paper, they had good material. Like, not great material for either. They both could have done better, but the material isn't like awfully bad. But as these more writing based battlers, that's kind of their superpower. So when the material's and the crowd control, the performance isn't crazy, you get a battle that just had no direction. It felt like it just didn't go much of anywhere. So in the first round, I thought it was debatable. I edged Nitty, but you could have Jay 1-0. Nobody ran off with the first. The second round of the battle, I thought was decent. I thought Jay's second is probably the best round of the battle, all things considered. I thought in the second half of his second, he really kicked it up a notch. So it was good to see him move in a more positive direction. Nitty's second was a little bit better, but I thought he then tried to turn up, but he kind of like old Nitty in New York when he was first getting used to the stage. I thought he rushed through his material. I thought, like, to up his aggression, he also upped the speed of his rapping, and he just ran through his second round. So I had Jay the Nightwing winning the second pretty clearly. So I had it 1-1, and it comes down to the third. I see a lot of people giving Jay the third, and even though I know that this is not a very good battle, I think Jay is going to get a better look out of it. I'm just simply seeing more Jay the Nightwing 2-1. His third was maybe as good, a little bit worse than his second. So it was around there. It was competing. And Nitty kind of had the same flaws from his first two. I would say his third is his best round of the battle in comparison. It still leads to what feels like a pretty debatable last round. I personally edged Nitty the third round. I might be in the minority with that one, but the winner doesn't matter too much in this for me. Like I said, I have Nitty 2-1 edge. It's debatable. I'm seeing a lot of people give it to Jay 2-1, but neither of them were great performers. Neither of them kept the crowd. It felt like it was even a worse version of Jon John and Fonz in terms of losing the crowd, and that's after Rock just gave a pretty masterful performance versus Sick. Not that that was some battle that teared the building down, but kind of like I said, it's battle of the night in comparison to this other shit. And if I had to point out a worse battle, a low light of the night, I'd have to go Nitty versus Jay. And I'd say with Nitty being the vet he is, my predictions talked about him returning to New York first time since the Tay-Rock battle. He was very good then, but he's a best in the world contender now. I expected even if Jay was rough and had a tough time translating, that Nitty would hold it down. And I thought Nitty gave one of the more disappointing performances of the night, especially considering his experience. So even though I have Nitty 2-1, it definitely feels like a bit of a loss after the fact. And he really has no one to blame but himself, because it was really a bizarre performance for someone that usually is at 100%, one of the most consistent we have. But I'll say it one more time, the battle simply had no feel. So Nitty 2-1, but I see a lot of people saying Jay 2-1. Y'all can have it. And then Miss Hustle versus TTop is just a battle I simply predicted wrong. I thought Hustle would be dominant going in. I thought that she would win 2-1, if not 3-0. A little bit more explosive on that stage. And TTop just handled business. Not only did he win, I thought he had like one of the more complete performances of the night. If I had to rank it, I'd say Tay-Rock was the performer of the night. Eunice was the second best, and I would put TTop at 3. The first round was mucky with him and Hustle, debatable. They both angled a bit. No one ran off with it. It kind of lived up to being the matchup I didn't care for one round in. But TTop looked like a true showman in the second and the third. He was joking on her a little bit with the comedy. He was angling her down with some messy angles, but also a little bit of like, I'll just say showmanship. There's really no other way to put it. He was performing in different ways. He was adding in some great haymakers in between too. It felt like he was comfortable up there and having an all-around performance. One of the battlers that controlled the crowd best on the night, while Hustle was just not that good. She cut her third short. She was struggling with the crowd and portions of it. This is all this NOME was. It was battlers struggling with the crowd. It was some battlers, if they even hit a 7 or 8 out of 10 level of good, they were winning the battle. There was no 10 out of 10 performances, and if you were just decent, most of the time, that's what was winning you battles on this card. Nobody had some I'd say Rock was the closest with that performance, but even then, that wasn't some like nuclear Tay-Rock either. I thought he kind of slowed down by the third round. So TTop took this battle super clear, to the point you can even hear kind of on Hustle's mic as it's cutting to intermission. She said, "Congratulations on your performance." So she's congratulating him. congratulating your opposition immediately after the battle does not sound like you won that battle, right? So shockingly light performance from Miss Hustle. TTop performance I didn't see coming. I have to apologize. I thought he's been inconsistent lately, and that could play out in a NOME 15, but he was actually one of the most complete and consistent battlers of the card. So you finish off night of 3-0s with Eunice. I had him winning 3-0. I had Fonz winning 3-0. I had Rock winning 3-0. I had Niti 2-1. It's the most debatable battle with Jay, but it's far from the best. And then in the last completed battle of the night, I had TTop 3-0 over Miss Hustle, with, I guess, the second being one of the closer rounds of the night. But that is my full recap here for NOME 15. As you can hear, not the most excited to break this one down. A bit more analytical. We're talking about best bars of the night. I mentioned performances of the night, but usually there's legacy shifting performances that shift the year. But outside of Eunice's W over Chess, what that obviously does for him with this whole new star conversation, it didn't feel like anything just too major happened. And when I talk about why this card kind of ended up the way it is, I don't think it was because of production. Wasn't the most heavily promoted, but there was guys promoting. I don't think it was about that. The crowd was a bit restless, but some people were able to capture their attention. I just don't think the rappers rapped that amazing. I don't think this was a great set of performances from a bunch of battles where I expected it to simply be better. I expected the vets to be more locked in, being happy to return to New York. I expected some of these UM1 guys and new guys who mostly did good, but to even do better, to have like building snatching performances. But there was good things that happened, but nobody flat out mesmerized me as a battle rapper the other night. And overall, before Rex and Geechee going down, I thought this was a 4 out of 10 card, 5 out of 10 at best. Obviously everything going on with Rex, we're still sending prayers his way. I would just give this a 4 out of 10. Is it the worst NOME I've seen? No. I think there's like critically bad NOMEs. I think NOME Impact with the 2-on-2s, terrible. NOME 4, which is when Clips and Tay-Rock rematched, ended up happening in like a different venue, right? So it was like Goods and Averb was the only like really good battle that happened on NOME 4. I'd put that towards the bottom. But if there's 15 NOMEs, this is in the bottom 5. Like, even though it's not the flat out worst, it's just one where the worst things ever didn't happen, but there definitely wasn't any like all-time performances to talk about. And this is an all-time promotion, all-time level card with night of main events, and you're expecting those kind of big, we'll look back at the end of the year and talk about this from NOME. Last year you got Lux and Nitty. Even the performances that were kind of supporting, like a Jazz and Coffee, was major to talk about. It's going to get talked about a lot for Wody. You really got none of that from this NOME. So those people that doubted it going in, I thought we were going to get a 7, if not an 8 out of 10 NOME. And the way the battles played out, it kind of played into what the critics said about it not feeling like a NOME card. There was battles on here that simply didn't end up feeling high stakes, and there's nothing else for me to point to besides the quality of the raps that were given. So not my most positive review over here for this one. Not like just shitting on it either. I think the energy with the Rex situation kind of mucks everything up. But now I want to hear your guys' opinions in the comment section down below. How did you feel about NOME 15? Who were your winners of the night? Who was your performance of the night? Your main takeaways? And did you have a battle of the night? If I had to choose, it's Rock and Sick or Eunice and Chess. But neither of them are really, no top 10 battles of the year occurred on NOME 15, so I don't feel very inclined to like go and pick out a battle of the night. But please let me know all your thoughts on the card in the comment section down below, man. But it's been Jay Small Reviews again here, y'all. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'm going to catch you on the next one, man. Peace.